I do think that there's the stigma of thinking when you become vegan, all you're going to eat is salads and tofu. There's so many different items that are plant-based that are so diverse and so amazing. You need to read your body and listen to your body. Like, that's one of the biggest things that people don't understand. Like, once you get your diet dialed in, when you eat, how you eat, your body will tell you what you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. Dotsie can't be with us today, so it's just me, but she will be back next week. Before I intro our guest, I wanted to share something personal with you in hopes that it might, resonate and maybe help you in your life. So, for about 4 months, the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I was in a rut. I was eating too much sugar, as I can do, because as I've shared on this podcast before, I'm not that into food, but I have addicted behaviors when it comes to sugar, which to me is not a food, it's a drug and a poison. Mostly what happens is that one's too many and 100 is not enough. It never satisfies me, but I crave it. I was eating chocolate, ice cream, no foods of any kind of redeeming value at all. And I know now that I was eating my feelings. They had been very hurt, and I wasn't taking a moment to acknowledge or discuss what was going on deep inside me. I was just soothing myself by eating sweets throughout the day and, keeping a stiff upper lip. I was never really satisfied emotionally or physically by what I was eating, but I kept doing it. And therefore, gradually the healthier foods went by the wayside and I just ate more junk. I didn't feel good in the morning. I didn't have as much patience and resilience with daily challenges. I felt guilty that I wasn't treating my body well, and I didn't like the way I looked, but I felt stuck. I knew I needed to change, but I didn't have the motivation on my own to do it. It was probably because I wasn't working through those feelings, which by then I had realized were probably the source of my issue. And then I remembered a guest that we had on the podcast, Maxime Seguin, on episode 241. Very well worth listening to. So much information there. But he had been very vulnerable in recounting his own journey to a balanced relationship with food. And he has this program called Fit Vegan where he helps other people get healthy. And I wondered if maybe the support of that program could jumpstart me out of this rut. And I have never considered joining a program before. I mean, I've gone to nutritionists and therapists, yes, but a program with other people and having like rules, or not rules, but like guidelines, woo, that sounded too scary. And anyway, my issue seems small. Okay, so I'm eating too many sweets. I'm not overweight. I exercise. I sleep well. I have love in my life. I don't eat fried foods, fast food, drink soda, coffee, or alcohol, blah, blah, blah. I was ashamed that I was bothered so much by this one thing, this eating sugar. I felt out of control though, and I was worried about playing around with my health. I'm 60 years old. I really need to be as healthy as I can be if I want to continue living a long, healthy life. Now, I'm sure that some of you might think that I should have reached out to a therapist first to deal with the core reason I was eating badly. And I understand that. But sometimes when we fix our behavior, it gives us the strength and equilibrium to come to terms with whatever pain is inside us that started that bad behavior in the first place. So I contacted Maxime, and he was lovely and welcoming and non judgmental. I took the leap and I joined the program. It's a 4-month program, and it's been great. I have not eaten any sweets except fruit since I started, which has been over 2 months. I cook meals. I only eat whole foods. Well, it's like 99% whole foods. I have some protein powder and tofu, and then I guess I've eaten some whole grain crackers. But such a difference in my eating. And Ian loves it too. And this program gives support of coaches and other people in the program. I feel so much better because I'm not ruled by sugar and I'm not ruled by my cravings. I mean, there was one day when I wanted some chocolate in the last 2 months, but then the feeling passed. I just took the time to talk to myself about how little good that chocolate would really do for me and how much bad it would do if I started eating processed sugar again. So the lesson for me is not about this program per se. The lesson for me is that if I'm stuck in a rut and I can't get out of it on my own, I have to ask for help. It's not easy, but I know that if I had not reached out and been vulnerable, I would still be in that same place that I was at the beginning of the year. So if you're stuck in any area of your life, especially with having bad habits around food or health, exercise, et cetera, that are bringing you down, I really want to encourage you to go outside of yourself and find support and guidance. I mean, it might be an expert like Maxime or maybe a therapist, but it also might be a friend or a 12-step program or some free online program. And just as an aside, since I started taking control of the sugar and my diet, I have actually talked through my pain with three trusted people, and it's helped. So maybe things go hand in hand. I thought my story today fits some of the topics that I discuss with the guest that we have on this show. He himself fell off the health wagon at least a couple times, but he got back on. He's also a man who radiates empathy and non-judgment, which we all need when we're stuck. And he knows the value of getting help to be the best that we can be because he is a coach. So let me get on with the show. But thank you for being a listener or a YouTube watcher. And we always love hearing from you. So please feel free to send your thoughts to us on our website, which is switchforgood.org/podcast, and scroll down and there's a yellow orange button, and you can leave a voice message or you can send us an email at info@switchforgood.org. Today, I have the privilege of hosting a trailblazer in the world of sports and mentorship. With a professional basketball career that has spanned the planet, including a stint with the Harlem Globetrotters and a EuroLeague MVP award, Joseph Blair, also known as the vegan coach, is now bringing his experience and wisdom to the Washington Wizards as assistant coach. Off the court, Joseph champions a plant based lifestyle for its health benefits and its impact on the environment and animal welfare. He was co chair of DC Vegan Restaurant Week this year and is an ambassador for Veganuary. His passionate advocacy is reshaping how fans and athletes think about veganism. I also recommend visiting Coach Blair's Instagram page to watch the Vegan Diaries, where he takes you to vegan restaurants and those offering vegan options all around the country and abroad. So, join us as we learn more about Coach Joseph Blair, from his journey to veganism to his insights on how to inspire people, whether it's to play better ball or to eat vegan. Welcome to the show, Coach Blair.
Oh, thank you for so much for having me. I'm excited to be a part of it. And what an amazing intro. Thank you for that.
It's very well deserving. There's a lot that we left out. You've been a very involved citizen of the world. I want to talk first up about the Harlem Globetrotters because I grew up in the 70s and I watched that cartoon and was entranced. And I know there's much more to the Harlem. My husband actually has seen several games in real life in Detroit, but I'd like to know a little bit about for our audience who doesn't know about the Harlem Globetrotters, because they're not just a basketball team. They really made a difference in history. So if you have anything to share about that and then your own experience, I would really like to hear that.
Well, I think honestly, I have to give mad props to the Harlem Globetrotters, like for what it's done for my life personally. Because really, when I went to play for the Globetrotters, there was a point in my life where I was really not enjoying basketball the way I should. And when I've had my first stint with them, it really just changed my idea of what basketball was about. I lost my fun in the game, and I went there and I learned it all over again. And you can't help but to, if anyone's ever seen the Harlem Globetrotters, you can't but help but to. But also, they're really trendsetters and trailblazers in the sport of basketball itself. One of the first NBA players ever. For most people that don't know, the NBA was segregated. There was no black players in the NBA, and the first black ever NBA player was a former Harlem Globetrotter. And they really, even little tidbit of knowledge, I used to always ask this in meet greets: where did the Harlem Globetrotters come from? Well, they're not from Harlem. They're actually from Chicago, but they were called the Harlem Globetrotters just to let everyone know that it was an all-black team when they came into town, because it was still so segregated in the areas in which they played. So it's such a dynamic and historic organization when it comes to the sport, but not just the sport, but it also just comes down breaking down walls and the segregation and racism in the United States. And then not only that, but they've traveled the world just showing that, demonstrating that love of the game and that camaraderie. And for me to be a part of that was just such an honor and blessing. And I feel like people don't understand how much they've done outside of basketball, but what they've also done for the sport of basketball. But it's just an amazing experience. And I say this also, there's, and nothing against the NBA. Obviously, I'm a coach in the NBA, so it's a big thing for me. But this is still an experience where people come as families to the Globetrotter games, and you don't see that as much in the NBA now, sadly. But this is a thing where people, it is usually mom and dad bringing the kids, or more kids than there are actually adults at these games. So it's such a tie-in to just help people begin to love the sport even more, and I'm all about that.
Yeah, for people who've never seen them, they are a team who showcases like tricks and fun in the game. So it's not just who wins. And they're incredibly talented with the ball. So for you to be a part of the Harlem Globetrotters says a lot about your talent being able to play with the ball. I heard a story that you told about how your first game, you were laughing so hard during the game. Tell us that story.
Yes, I've been a fan of the Harlem Globetrotters since I was little as well. I watched the cartoons as well. So honestly, for me, it was such an honor to be around some of these players that I actually saw on the cartoons. And the story I was saying was my first game ever. I met the team um, in Minnesota actually, and we're on the way to the game, and one of the players had picked me up, and we're just going through all this snow to get to the small high school because during the week we're not in those big arenas that most people perceive. We're at small high schools, small colleges, all those things. And I get there the first night, and all they told me was, just suit up. We'll throw you in a little bit to play, but really want you to get the feel for what we're doing and everything. And I sat there and I just was laughing so hard about every little joke and everything. I felt like I should have bought a ticket for this because I'm enjoying this way too much. And then the next night I realized, wait, that's the same joke that we told yesterday. And I wasn't laughing as hard, but I was still laughing. But still, I will say, even as a player with the same jokes and tricks and different things we do, you still have this, you find this undeniable love and admiration for your teammates and the game itself. But I will say, just adding to what you said, there is definitely the Globetrotters are all about having fun when they play, and all the spectacular things you see in an NBA game. It's like if you could compress all that into one all the time, that's kind of what the Harlem Globetrotters are all about, and just the interaction with the fans that we don't get a lot with the NBA. Total interaction with the fans, even to the point of after the games, they kind of rope off the court, and we all just stay down there, put some time on the clock, and sign autographs for every person that can come down to the court. So it's all about fan interaction, all about the love of the game, and getting people to love the game.
And just a side note that I learned while researching for this show is that although the Globetrotters started as an all black team because the NBA was segregated, it's now the most diverse team around, having some women, some people, not everybody is black, and there are little people and very tall people and all sorts of very talented humans. I did hear that they're petitioning to enter the NBA. Is that correct?
They did for a while there. I know they wanted to. When I was playing, actually, we participated in the summer leagues, NBA summer leagues, or the pro summer leagues, as much as possible, and even played the games against college all stars. So during the Final Fours, they would get a group of the best players in college that were not playing in the Final Four, and we would play against them. So for quite some time, they were really looking to get competitive basketball. And again, I say this all the time: like people see the Harlem Globetrotters think it's just a bunch of people that are out doing tricks, but every one of the Harlem Globetrotters played college basketball somewhere, had some experience with basketball before that. Even the team we play against, they're all college basketball players. So these aren't just some people we pick up off the street. Every one of these people played basketball at a very high level.
You are the vegan coach. Can we start with your vegan journey? You became a vegetarian in college. Start there.
Yeah, so my last year of college, I was running low on funds, and I what's interesting because I always say people say veganism is so expensive. Well, no, actually, meat eating is extremely expensive because a pound of any meat costs more than most of vegetables by the pound. So I took the little money I had when in my last year of college, and I went and I bought ramen noodles, bananas, a sack of potato, pastas. I remember for a while I was loving going to the Chinese restaurants and getting a big thing of hot and sour soup and rice. And I would just make that like 2 meals. 'Cause I would just add the rice to the hot and sour soup. And the funny thing happened was I started feeling better. I lost weight. I thought when I was in college I was a little bit chubby, but still very handsome though. But yeah, chubby. And I, I started losing weight, and my energy levels went up, and I was like, well, I'm just going to stick with this. So as I started in my professional career, I just continued it on. I remained vegetarian for over 10 years. So that was vegetarian for 10 years. Then I was pescatarian for 3 years. Then I just went off the wagon. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that, okay, I retired from playing. Maybe I don't need to take care of my body the way I am now. So let me just start eating everything. And then almost 10 years ago now, the girl I was dating at the time called me and said, hey, I'm going vegan. I just saw this documentary, and what they do to animals is terrible. And I was like, all right, I love you. I'm going to do it with you. There's no way I'm not going to support you. So that's what I did. And I stopped cold turkey. The only thing I said, hey, whatever's left in my refrigerator, I'm going to eat, but I'm not buying anything else. And it just so happened I end up throwing away half the stuff in my refrigerator because the results are so instantaneous. I felt so much better right away. And honestly, I knew it. I knew from being vegetarian that this was going to be better for my body, better for my, just my overall well-being, my holistic health. And it was, I mean, immediate. I could feel the difference. My energy levels went up. My weight stopped fluctuating. My complexion cleared up. Like everything was better. My focus was better, everything. So, and now I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. And honestly, after I talked to her about it, I did my own personal research, and I just felt that like I've been a victim of mass marketing. And I was like, oh, no way will I ever allow myself to be bamboozled the way I was for so many years of my life. And it really became not only about the health and well-being, but also just what I call the encompassing of conscious living. This understanding also that nothing should die for me to live. If I can live without causing any death and live healthy and thrive, why would I not make that choice? Anything outside of that is just greed.
I definitely want to get more into that, but I want to ask you, as an African American, since 75% of African Americans have some lactose intolerance, do you feel that as a Black man yourself, that getting rid of the milk helped you?
Oh, 100%. Because I think that was the biggest shift, to be honest with you, when I went from vegetarian to vegan. When I was vegetarian, I was still eating eggs, I was still eating cheeses and all the dairies. And the first thing, number one, that the biggest difference right away was my complexion. Like I tell people all the time, if you're having struggling with your complexion, get your dairy out of your system immediately, and you'll watch how quickly it changes. Um, but one also just like the energy levels as well. I say like when you get full and you say you're eating a cheese omelet, the difference in what you'll feel between eating a cheese omelet and any other vegan meal when you're finished eating is just absurdly different. So I do think that it is, let's be honest here. This is where it goes back to my conscious living thinking, right? Number one is I call it the two pillars of my conscious living. Number one is adult rationality, and that's a big portion right now. Rationally thinking, we have to stop. If we stop at anything we've been marketed, anything we've believed up to this point, let's just think I have my clear mind and be rational about it. No other animal on this planet takes milk from another animal. Even if I told you there was a woman lactating in the corner, do you want some of her milk? You'd say, hell no, but at least that's a human being. So if you think that's disgusting, why do you find it pleasurable to take milk from a lactating cow? Like this is 1,000 pound beast. And if you really think rationally, you say, okay, well, I want to be strong. And okay, then that's an elephant or gorilla, because the strongest mammal is an elephant. Closest to us with the amazing strength is a gorilla. But what about a cow do you want to be that you want to start drinking cow milk all the time? Nothing makes sense. Rationally speaking, that makes zero sense whatsoever. And on top of all that, no mammal on this planet, zero, drinks milk after infancy. We know that whatever nutrients you need in the milk, you no longer need after you've grown out of infancy. So just rationally speaking alone, rationally thinking alone, if you just leave everything you've ever heard, everything you've ever been marketed, you recognize 100% that it makes no sense. We have no need for dairy products whatsoever. And even worse, when we say, I'm going to let it go bad, go hard, then I'm going to shred it and put it on top of food. That's even worse. Like nothing about that makes sense.
That's right. I love that example of would you take milk from a woman's breast, that woman down the street? And all of us would say no, but we're happy to take it from a cow which is another species whom we've never met at all. We don't know how they were raised. Most people don't. You and I know how they were raised, and it's terrible. So that's a perfect example of how irrational our milk drinking is. So it sounds like that veganism, you had a really strong shift in your outlook on life. Can you share more about that?
So yeah, I think that the next thing when I talk about the my two pillars of conscious living is the second one is I say a childlike compassion. So it's adult rationality, childlike compassion. And when I say that, it goes back to like if there's any 2-year-old kid in the on the planet, and I'm sitting there with the child, and a chicken goes by, and I kick that chicken, that 2-year-old's going to get mad at me for kicking the chicken immediately. Why? Because it's compassionate. We have that innate feeling of compassion towards other species and other animals that you would wonder, why are you doing that? So if we somehow along the way we've lost that, and hate is learned. So to hate something enough to slaughter it, devour it, that's a next level of hate that we're taught. That is something that's taught by parents and say, here, take that chicken, eat it. Why? Because the chicken's life means less than your life does. So it doesn't matter. We are the superior being. We can overpower it. But isn't that the same thing when it comes down to racism, to sexism, anti-Semitism? Isn't that exact same thinking that is literally destroying our planet and our communities as a whole? So if we can alleviate that thinking completely, it has to start with our diet. Start with understanding that every species, every individual, every spirit, every sentiment being on this planet deserves that same respect. So when I put those two things together, if I think rationally and I think with compassion, that's what I call conscious living. And when I say I'm conscious living, the other thing about conscious living, it immediately bleeds over to every aspect of your life. Because now, if you're always thinking rationally and thinking with compassion, every interaction you have with every single person changes as well. So as I meet a stranger on the street, how do I rationally want to speak to them, and how do I want to show them compassion? How do I know that they show up next to me and they're seen, heard, and valued immediately? And that's all about life. And if we do that, if all of us could embrace those characteristics, think the change this world would be. Think the change not only our world, but immediate change in your communities would be. If everyone thought rationally, what is my decision? How's my decision? How do I treat you going to affect you? And compassionately, how can I show you love and appreciation? How can I make you feel that you're seen, heard, and valued? How can I make you feel that you're loved and you're relevant?
One of your mottos is nothing should have to die for me to live.
100%. I mean, if you think, especially when it comes to diet, if you are eating meat, what you are saying is, I'll use the chicken because I just used the example with the kick the chicken. Like a chicken that you devour, your rotisserie chicken is 5 months old before it was slaughtered for your meal. The life extent of a chicken, if you did nothing to it, is well over 10 years. So you're deciding that my 30-minute meal, let's say an hour meal, if you really eat slow, is more important than over a decade of life to another being. That is greed at its finest, and that's hate at its deepest, is the way I look at it. So I know I can live, I can thrive, I can be healthy, I can be strong, I can be even more healthy than a meat eater. Why would I not make that choice? Why am I choosing to take another life? So if I know that I can live without causing any death and I can thrive in my living, that is 100% the rational decision to make.
You're 6'10". You're an athlete. You're over 250 pounds. Tell us what you're eating that fuels you and that makes you happy.
It's interesting. Well, it's interesting because I'm very disciplined in my diet. I do understand that, and I can touch on that a little bit more when it comes to veganism. But I intermittent fast. I'm uh, very cognitive and intentional about the things I do eat and when I do eat them. I usually break my fast with a specific protein drink on different things or smoothies, whatever it might be. But then I'm also very aware of the food I do take in. I want to make sure, and also really what I do, I just listen to my body, honestly. If I have, I will say this, like I give myself grace the way I tell everyone to give themselves grace when it comes to your diet. If you're constantly to the point where you're not enjoying your life because of your diet, you need to change something. But also understanding there's amazing options out there. But if I eat a lot of sweets one weekend or drink a lot one day, the next day my body craves greens. I feel it. I want to make I want to make greens. If I want proteins, then I want to make some big lentils and with curry. Like the other day, I made curried lentils over rice and with tomatoes and spinach and onions in it, and it was so hearty and good. And then the next day I was craving greens, so I just made this green salad with arugulas and cabbage and sprouts and bell peppers and jalapenos and cucumbers and everything, and I mixed it all together. And I felt so great because just the nutrients I felt were just being absorbed immediately to my body. So I do think that there's just this stigma of thinking when you become vegan, all you're going to eat is salads and tofu. There's so many different options out there, and that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to be part of the uh, DC Veg Week as well, just because it was an opportunity for anyone to go out in the community to go to different restaurants and see there's so many different items that are plant based that are so diverse and so amazing. And I'm personally, I love ethnic foods, I love Thai foods, I love Ethiopian food, I love Chinese food. I love, name it. I love any ethnic food, Indian food. So if you just think of those four that I named, the diversity in those four foods alone is a plethora of food. And then honestly, the flavors of food are always based upon the vegetables that you're using to season the food or to put into the food. I tell people all the time, there's one of the things I say, if I boiled a steak and gave it to you, you'd think it has no flavor. It's everything you put on top of it that makes it flavorful. So, yeah, so there's just so many food options. And when you decide to go plant based that are much bigger and broader than what people really perceive them to be. And I've never lacked for food. I've never said, oh, I'm not hungry. And then, of course, you're always going to have, where do you get your protein? That's the first question everyone gets when you become vegan. And my answer typically is, I get my protein where your protein gets its protein. I'm just not recycling my protein. So I get a straight plant based, clean protein that doesn't have cholesterol in it, doesn't have all the extra things that are injected into your protein to make the size that you need it to be to eat it. And on top of that, I also, because I do work out every day, I'm, again, as you said, I'm over 250 pounds. I'm 6'10". Um, a lot of people will say, well, I take extra protein drinks. Well, most people that work out do, and that's totally normal. And there's tons of plant-based protein drinks. So I take a plant-based protein drink all the time. I use plant-based protein powders all the time. It's absolutely normal. So if you're ever worried about your intake of protein, there's tons of ways to supplement it. And honestly, most people that are still carnivores, they still supplement their protein regardless with protein drinks. You're just, again, I'm taking out the cholesterol and all the bad stuff and the death out of my protein drink and making it a plant-based drink.
You're so right about all that, especially the variety, because let's face it, we just have cow's milk that basically we drink in America and maybe four types of meat. And yet people feel like when we take those away, we're taking away all their food. And they've basically had a lifetime of not exploring all the vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts and seeds and fruits that we have. So you're so right there. You mentioned intermittent fasting. Share with us a little bit about that because a lot of people are interested why you do it and the benefits for you because I've heard you speak that it really has helped you and you really enjoy it.
I do. For me, the benefits, number one, is my focus is constantly much higher level. And I will say this, like most people, they don't do it because they think, oh, I'd be too hungry. Well, these bodies we have are amazing things and they adapt so quickly and so well to whatever we do, and very quickly, actually. I intermittent fast. I have to give myself a 4-hour eating window. So typically my block of not eating is about 20 hours, sometimes a little higher depending on game days. Sometimes I push it back even further. My typical time will be 4:30 to 8:30 is when I like to have my eating window. But on the game days, I love to eat after the game. So I'm from 7 to 11 at night. So I can really eat after the games as well. So if my window was from 4:30 to 8:30 the day before, I end up fasting for well over 20 hours before I have my next meal. But I think that number one, I the first thing you'll notice is you're not aware of how much time you spend planning meals and eating those meals. Like it's ridiculously absurd. And the first time I really noticed, like, wow, I'm not sitting here wondering where I'm going to eat, getting to the restaurant, eating at the restaurant, waiting for the food to get there, get my way back from the restaurant. So much time is saved. And even in my workplace, for example, we have breakfast is provided, lunch is provided, and I get so much more work done because I'm not down in the breakfast room. I'm not down in the lunchroom. I'm just sitting in my office still getting work done. And I'm not really worried about, what am I going to eat? And now, um, I still think that there's a amount of preparation that should go into your intermittent fasting, like when you're going to break your fast, knowing how you're going to break your fast and when you want to do it, because you want to make sure you do it in a healthy way. And also, when you're first starting in particular, to not gorge yourself as soon as you break your fast. Because what happens when you gorge yourself right away, you're going to be gorged for about an hour to an hour and a half, maybe get to the end of your window, and you're not really going to be hungry to eat again. So you want to make sure you still supply your body immediately what you think it needs and craves in your first meal, quote unquote meal. So, you're going to want to get protein. You're going to have drinks. I do still take supplements. I think everyone should know what they need as far as supplementation for their body and be aware of that. So I'm very aware of that as well. And I take my supplements, my protein drinks with greens or fruit or whatever it might be right away. I also will typically eat a handful of mixed nuts just to get some of those different good fats and omega 3s as well. And then I'll have my other meal a little bit later, closer to the end of my fast. That way, again, this kind of pushes away that hunger for the next day. And the other thing is, a lot of people don't understand that really when you feel hungry, you're more dehydrated than you are hungry. This is a big thing. I learned this when I lived in Arizona for years, that a lot of times you feel hungry, that means you're dehydrated. You really need to take more water into your body. So also making sure you're hydrated properly is super important as well. But again, the mental focus has been a big thing. I don't want to get into it as if I'm a doctor, but I can tell you that I think the cellular development and all these different things, there's tons of um, good advantages to intermittent fasting. But I do recognize it's not for everyone, and definitely I think my 4 hour window is a bit of extreme. A lot of people do a 6 hour eating window. Some people do an 8 hour eating window, but I think that just some type of window is good for you. And even when I think about when it goes back to when we were back in our more Neanderthal days, there weren't refrigerators, there weren't anything that contained foods. When you woke up, you didn't eat right away. You actually went out and gathered your foods so you could have that one meal. So it's kind of going back to that same thinking.
I eat about 2,000 calories a day, and I'm about half your weight. So you must eat, how many calories do you get in? And isn't it hard to get all those in that short window?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not a calorie counter. I don't do that. I when I was in college and I played in college, my college coach was really always on me about losing weight. So I wasn't at the weight I needed to be. Obviously, when I turned vegetarian, it changed all that and I really slimmed down and felt better. But I also recognize how scales can really give people issues. So I don't calorie count. I very rarely would step on a scale. I have actually a routine where I do before a game, only on home games, just because I did it with another player and I'd guess his weight and he'd guess mine. So that was the kind of our thing we did. But other than that, I don't calorie count. I think that you're going to you need to read your body and listen to your body. Like that's one of the biggest things that people don't understand. Like if you really, once you get your diet dialed in, when you eat, how you eat, your body will tell you what you need. So there's days I know I need more calories. I can feel it. I know that, oh, today I'm going to eat more because I burned a lot of calories in that workout today. Today was a good example. I worked out today and I know I get a good workout in. So tonight when I break my fast, my caloric uptake is going to be much higher. And there's other days when I know, I worked out, but it wasn't a killer workout. So I'm not really starving. And again, the body's an amazing thing. It adapts quickly. So then I really can feel when, I'm not that hungry and it's time to break the fast, then why should I eat all these calories if I'm not that hungry right now? But then there's other times it's time to break my fast and I also have to slow myself down so I don't eat that big meal right away because I am feeling that hunger. But then I understand that, okay, I need to definitely have more calories on the back end.
How long did it take you to adjust? I struggled to get a 12-hour window, and I know it's because I'm a snacker. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s where they said that snacking throughout the 6 meals throughout the day was healthy. I translated that to, and I heard somebody last week say that Americans have on average 11, what she called eating incidents or something. She called them eating incidents a day, and I counted and I had 9. So I'm definitely a snacker, and so getting 12 hours takes a lot of cognizance on my part. I heard you say that it took a couple weeks for you to get used to it.
Well, actually, it didn't take me a couple weeks, but I definitely say so. For example, when I vacation, I drink alcohol. And if I drink alcohol, I'm breaking my fast because there's no way I'm going to put alcohol on my empty stomach. So I'll always have something to eat. And those times when I do that, when I come back from vacation, it takes me about 3 days for my body to be like, okay, we're not hungry in the morning again. Because once I've adapted my body to eating again during the day, it wants to eat during the day. It's normal. So it takes about 3 days for me to really fight through that again, or break through that again. I shouldn't say, because it's not really a fight; it's a breakthrough. But one of the biggest advice I can give during those times is that's when you want to go grab the biggest glass of water you can drink and chug that water. Because again, if you're filling up your stomach, it's going to fight off that craving a little bit more. Also, herbal teas are really good for that as well. You drink an herbal tea during that time with, I wouldn't say a high caffeine amount because you don't want to spike your caffeine levels, but just enough caffeine, because caffeine also pushes away your hunger for a little bit of time as well. So that's one of the things that I typically do, is like my tricks of the trade to keep on track on those days when I am struggling a little bit more. But it took me about, 4 to 5 days of doing it consistently for my body really to dial in and know when it's time to eat, when it's time to sleep, when it's time to do everything. And this again, like this is what my still working out. I'm an early riser. I get up early and I love to work out first thing in the morning. So what people call the fasted cardio is like my everyday cardio, because that's what I do every single day, whether it's weightlifting, whatever it might be. I've grown accustomed to it. But I think that your body will adjust. It will take a few days, and there's little tricks like that. The number one thing I'm going to tell you is the hydration. Like, drink as much water as you can, especially when you're feeling hungry. Drink water right away first, because the snack typically is also not. People are definitely getting enough food calories into their body every day, but they're not getting enough water into their body every day.
Thank you. That's a lot of good advice. Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle of stress and sleepless nights? I know I have. But since I've added Magnesium Breakthrough to my nightly routine, no joke, I've been able to quiet my mind, fall asleep fast, and stay asleep longer. And what sets this supplement apart is that while other magnesium supplements, and certainly all the other ones I've tried, and I've been taking magnesium for years, while all the other ones only give you 1 to 2 forms of magnesium, Magnesium Breakthrough contains all 7 forms. So, I've never even heard of this. So it will not only help you fall asleep, but it will keep you regular and focus your mind, plus the many, many other things that magnesium does, which you've probably heard me talk about on this podcast, because as I said before, I've been taking magnesium for years and it's really, really helped me. But I love this magnesium because it contains all 7 forms of the supplement, and it's vegan, gluten-free, and soy-free. And also super important to me because, as we know, supplements aren't regulated. They don't contain always what they say they contain, but Magnesium Breakthrough has received a good manufacturing practice certification through third-party inspections, so you can trust by optimizers. So get this all-natural, full-spectrum magnesium supplement by going to buyoptimizers.com/switch4good and use promo code switch4good during checkout to save 10%. I want to talk a little bit now about how your passionate advocacy and your work career intersect. So, how has veganism, we talked about how it changed your outlook. How has it changed you as a coach in practical terms? How you relate with your young basketball players, because they are usually quite young.
Yeah, I think that goes back to exactly what I was saying with the conscious living and how it just bleeds over to every aspect of my life. The more I did that, the more you can take into account that it's easier to empathize and put yourself in someone else's shoes because of that. Like I can automatically, um, I understand what they're going through, understand what it could be, and also understand different ways to communicate things as well, because I want to be sensitive to what they're going through. And then, mind you, not all the time is it a sensitive approach. Sometimes it's a more harsh approach to push them to be the best versions of themselves. But the good thing about that, I've gotten to the point where I've already helped them to feel seen, heard, and valued, to know that they're loved and relevant. They matter in my eyes, that I can push them to that point. So that area of conscious living is exactly what helped me get to that point with them, where now they understand that I'm doing everything out of love. I'm pushing them out of love. I want to see the best for them, not because it benefits me, because I know it'll benefit them. In the end, also, all of that comes back and benefits me, and it benefits everyone around them. Now, one of the things I love about basketball is that it is something that I could never accomplish on my own. You need everyone to be involved to do it, and you're part of something greater than yourself. But isn't that just a microcosm of our bigger community and world? So the more you can do that, the more that we all benefit. So I feel like that's been the biggest uptick for me, is that understanding. Again, what I said, the pillars of conscious living. Adult rationality. I rationally understand that we're all different. We all go through different things, and you might be having a bad day that day. You have a family. You have a spouse, you have a significant other, a lot of them have children. So, am I being rationally thinking of what I'm asking of them? And then compassion, the second thing, childlike compassion. Am I being compassionate in my approach to how I'm dealing with them constantly? Am I always showing love? Are they feeling valued by me? And if there's something they're not being valued, how can I address that so they feel valued? So now they understand that everything I'm doing is only to push them to be the best version of themselves.
Seen, heard, and so they feel they matter. How do they react? How do they react to your veganism? Because you're very outspoken. You've been on many television shows, podcasts, magazines, etc., and you are very open about how what veganism and your lifestyle has done for you. Are they interested in plant-based eating? And if so, how do you advise them to begin?
Everyone around me always knows that I'm the vegan coach, so it's something that a lot of players will just say that, oh, vegan coach, what's up, how we doing today, vegan coach, or whatever it might be. And they say it playfully, but for me, I'm like, I'm honored by that. One time one of my other coaches called me a militant vegan. I was like, oh my goodness, you're being so kind, thank you. So uh but honestly, the thing about my veganism is, I take my veganism the same way I take my religion. I'm very serious about it, but I'm never going to push it on you. But if you ask me about it, I'm gonna give you my heart. So that's why it is when the players do talk about it. If they're willing to have the conversation with me, then I'm going to give my heart to them. And in the end, they take it, and I give you everything. I give you the food, but it's on you to eat it, literally and figuratively. So that's kind of the way it is with them. And a lot of times they want to ask me questions, or they'll call me if they decide to go vegan for a little bit. They're so excited about it, they want to let me know. Say, yo, I turned vegan for like a month. I actually felt good, but I feel I need to do this. And I'll just say, hey, give yourself grace. And we're all vegan until we've had our next meal. You can kill yourself vegan until you've eaten again. So you're vegan right now until you eat again. So you're fine with that. But I've really understood that there's a lot more interest than ever before. And and it's not just in professional sports. This is in uh, on a global scale right now. And one of the best things about this is now veganism and plant based foods have become marketable, where they were never marketable before. They weren't profitable. So there was an abundance of marketing towards got milk, the other white meats. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. Now, if you look on TV, you're going to see Beyond Burger commercials and Impossible Burger commercials and Morningstar commercials, and so many different varieties of different stuff. Now almost every grocery store has their own line of plant-based alternatives as well. So now they've become marketable, now it's become profitable. Now people are becoming more interested in it because they didn't know about it before. They really didn't understand about it before, and they never understood. They didn't understand that alternatives were out there, but they never really understood why there are alternatives. Now, because they're out there, people want to know, why are they out there? Why is a need for that? Why is there a demand for those things? And it comes back to that, gives me an opportunity for me to get my foot in the door and explain to them, hey, this is why, because this has been happening. This is because this the livestock industry is number one emitter of greenhouse effects, because we're taking lives, we're slaughtering millions upon millions of animals every single day. And because there's so many different things I can say, because your bodies aren't designed to eat that, because it's a it's a carcinogen that you're putting into your body because this causes heart disease, causes diabetes, it causes cancer, all these things. So now people are being more aware of what they're putting in their body. So because now they're demanding better things, they're supplying better things. It's all supply and demand. That's where our world is based upon, and definitely our economic system in the United States. So if we're not going to demand it, they're not going to supply it. But now there's people that are demanding different options, and now we're beginning to supply it. And because of that, it's really opening the eyes of not just professional athletes, but entire communities and the world.
Dotsie founded Switch for Good, and this podcast is part of that nonprofit. But she's the founder, and that Switch for Good pushes very much the idea that basically we're just pawns being fed milk specifically, because cheese comes on the market cheaply and stuff just so that the government can get rid of all that excess milk, because cheese will last for a long time, but milk goes bad, and they've subsidized it, and so they've pushed it on us, even though it's hugely unhealthy, especially for such a large percentage of the population. So she pushes a lot that there's a lot of racism involved with the pushing of dairy, because as soon as peanuts became unhealthy for little kids, maybe there was a chance that they were allergic. They were pulled from planes and schools and everything, but we continue to push milk on. And I'm wondering if that ever resonates with your players, who are often people of color. Um, that because when I was in my 20s, I cared a lot about making the world a better place and making my mark. And so those kind of arguments were powerful. How do your players react to the arguments about climate change, suffering, the government basically pushing on this food that's so unhealthy for so many Americans?
I mean, I think that the players react the way any individual reacts, right? You and I always say this. Number one, I know it's specific to me because I am an NBA coach. But if you take 100 people of any populace and you match them with 100 players, you're gonna have the same ups and downs and sporadic and diversity in there, as far as their personal choices in life. Um, but you have some that automatically will say, "I don't care, it tastes good. That's just where I am." General populace, I have the same exact response from many people. You have others that are like, what did you say? I didn't even realize that. Next one is, I had no idea. I had no idea. I just like, what you're telling me, is that really true? And I've never thought about it that way. I've never thought about it that way is one of the biggest things. And I was the one I was guilty of that as well. I never thought about it that way. Even when I was vegetarian, it was about, does it make me feel better? And then I never thought about it that way. But I never thought about it. I never used my rational thinking behind it. But I do think that um, that is definitely an argument that I use often. Of, you know, number one, think about, as I said, that it causes meat eating causes, it's cancerous. It is diabetic, and then the same thing with the dairy industry. It is like, blows my mind. Even a dairy cow that lives 5 years, it would live 20 years if no one was trying to use it for its dairy. Um, so just those little arguments are big eye openers for everybody. And even with the players, when I do have these conversations, that's the number one thing I hear typically is like, I didn't know that. I had no idea about that. And, or you hear, I don't care, it tastes good. And, that it is what it is. I accept everyone for who they are and how they're going to be. And that's just the way but the thing about it is, I was not educated the way I should have been, or I would have made the right choices before. So my goal right now, being the vegan coach, being the person I am, being an advocate for a plant-based lifestyle, is just that. I'm going to give you the education. And as I said before, I can give you the food, but I can't make you eat it. So, and that's literal and figuratively.
Yeah, I was educated, and I was vegetarian when I was 14, but I didn't become vegan until I was 49. So, and I knew, because my brother had been vegan since he was 16, and I was surrounded by animal rights people and everything. But I'm guilty of being educated, but not moving, and finding so many of rationalizations of all the wrong kind to not give up dairy, until I did, and my life changed.
But I still say this, like, I mean, if you think about our general populace, like meat eating, dairy drinking, dairy consumption, like this is the same issues we have with, people that drink too much know they drink too much, but they still do it. People that smoke know they shouldn't smoke, but they still do it. And until you decide to take your health into your own hands and make decisions for your own life, no matter what I tell you about what's good for you, bad for you, what's good for the environment, bad for the environment, good for the planet, good for other species, until you decide that you want to make a change in your life and make yourself the best version of yourself, all the information and knowledge I have is not going to help you change. So that's why the one thing I said again, I can give you the food, but I can't make you eat it. And this really comes down to you to make the decisions that are best for your life and best for the lives of everyone around you. And really, in turn, it comes back and reciprocates and benefits you as well.
Does performance enhancing possibilities of a vegan diet inspire the players for the most part, since career is probably first and foremost in their minds?
It is, but again, you have to understand they've been marketed since they were young. Again, like I said before, the plant-based marketing is just now coming what it is. It hasn't been like this for even 5 years to a decade. I've been vegan now 10 years, and what I was eating 10 years ago is nowhere near what I get to eat now. So because it's just now coming around that way to talk, they still need to understand about how this will reduce inflammation. This will up your energy levels. This will level out your blood levels to where it should be. This is really giving you the vitamins, minerals, everything you need to perform at your best level. And you're not lacking protein. Because again, that's always going to be the first thing. What about my protein? You know, you'll be fine. I promise you. But I will ask you, do you have enough fiber in your diet? How about that? Can we talk about that for a second? Because that's the one thing when you go to the doctor says you need more fiber. No one's going to the doctor and they said you need more protein. So the understanding of that, of there's no fiber in meat and there's no cholesterol in vegetables. So what does that mean? Everything that's designed to clean you out is in fiber. It's the vegetables. What is everything designed to clog you up? That's cholesterol. That's in meat. So if you really think again about rationality, if you really think rationally, and you decide to take your life in your own hands and make the best choices for yourself and everyone around you, then you can't help but agree with me.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you 100%. Um, Tell us about the NBA culture around food. The team has provided meals. What kind of food is available? And is there a conscious? Is it just about filling up with calories, or is there a consciousness among the culture that healthy foods are important for performance, even for young athletes?
First of all, most teams do have a dietitian or someone that's in charge of the food. So it's really, again, if a player is going to ask for something, they're probably going to get it. If a player says that before every game I've been eating steak, they're going to get a mistake because that whatever he needs, we're going to make sure that because sometimes it's a mental thing for them as well. They believe I played my best game because one time I had, when I was in college, it was pancakes. We had pancakes before every game. The coach said, he believed that pancakes were the carb loader that we needed to perform at our absolute best. So it's really on that, but also there's a plethora of foods available, and there's always food available everywhere. Most practice facilities, there's a chef and a kitchen in there. When you show up in the morning, there's breakfast available. There's an omelet station. They'll make you an omelet. There's a smoothie station where they'll make you a smoothies. There's also a fruit station with all kinds of fruits. There's pre-made bacon, turkey bacon, pork bacon, sausage, eggs, breakfast sandwiches. And then when lunch comes around, there's going to be a bunch of, there's always a salad bar sitting there. The smoothie station's still there. There's always going to be some type of rice, vegetables for sure. I've been blessed that I take advantage of that. There's always quite a few options when it comes to vegan alternatives outside of whatever the meat things they have, because they do typically will have some steak, have some chicken, have some fish, something like that, or shrimp or whatever it might be. But then there's also, braised garbanzo beans, lentils, there's greens, there's broccolis, there's rice, there's potatoes, there's all these other great options as well, broccolinis, all these different things you can think of, as well as a salad bar. There's always a soup as well. And then the same thing we travel on the road, there's always definitely good options as well. I've been super blessed where the dietitian has been great about providing things for me. If I say, to make sure there's always a vegan option for JB. And what's great is a lot of times my vegan option gets stolen from me because someone saw it and thought it looked good. And I'm not even mad about it because I'm like, great, you had a vegan meal. Take it. I'll figure out something else to eat. I'll have this salad. I'm fine with having salad and something else just so you got to experience something and say, man, it was really good. I liked it. Great. So next time, hopefully you'll think about that.
So when you travel with the team, does the team, the city where you go, is it their responsibility to feed the visiting team, or does your dietitian come with you and chefs and all that?
So typically, when we go to an arena, or go on, let's just say travel to begin with, before we even get to the arena at the hotel will provide food for us. We set up a brunch or whatever it might be, and our dietitian, whoever is ordering our food in advance, will mark down what they want in those. We usually have a pasta station, omelet station, then you have hot food stations, and salad, fruits, smoothie stations set up as well. But then when you get to the arena, there's also a standard thing that you can ask for to make sure it's already placed outside of your locker room so that people can eat. And then post game, um, it's really I've been with teams where they allow the home team where we're traveling to provide the food, and they'll decide what that might look like. And then I've been with the team also that we actually travel with our own chef, and the team would rent out space in the hotel kitchen so that our chef could make those post game meals for all the players to make sure they had the options that kind of lined up more so with what the dietitian wanted. But at the same time, if we're in Memphis and a player loves barbecue, he'll buy barbecue for the entire team, and that's what they're going to eat. If we're in Chicago and it's pizza, they get pizza. If it's in New York, it could be pizza as well. It really also is kind of regionally based as well what the food's going to look like.
So, how many other vegan players and coaches are there in the NBA? I know Chris Paul, whom I like to say is a relative of mine, since we share the same last name. I'm sure way back we, hopefully, we are. He became vegan in 2019, and I've heard you say that that made everyone more accepting of a plant-based diet. Is it How common is it?
Well, first of all, I was Chris Paul changed in 2019. It was the Houston Rockets, and I was working with the Rockets at the time. So I like to believe that I had quite a big influence on him changing. Possibly, maybe not. Who knows? But I'm glad that he did, regardless, because he's became a huge advocate, and I think that it's great that we have the players who are now speaking up. And there's more players than what people think. I know Jared Vanderbilt with the Los Angeles Lakers. He was with me in Minnesota, and it was interesting because it actually helped my meal choices because they're going to provide him something amazing, and I just get to be on the side and get something with him as well. And we had another one of our coaches that was vegan at the time as well, so it was a good amount of us. And when you see enough food, the other people start getting interested in, I want some of that too. Can I have a little bit of that as well? But there's definitely other players around the league and coaches that people just don't know about. So it's beginning to grow in popularity, and it's going to continue to, in my opinion, because as people start seeing that, well, you play and you're healthy and you're strong and you're still moving fast, and look at Chris Paul's example, how long he's continued to play. Um, I think people's going to see that example and think that they can start to implement some of those things into their lifestyle as well and their career choices.
Tell us about the vegan diaries. I mentioned it in the intro.
Yeah, it's been the one of the blessings of being in the NBA is I get to travel all over the country, and one of the things I really took advantage of is going to search out some of the restaurants that are either vegan restaurants or have vegan options. And it really started back because it was something I said earlier when I would always tell people I'm vegan. They're like, "Well, what do you eat? Just tofu and salad all the time? How are you so big on tofu and salad?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? I eat all kinds of stuff. Like, tell me." I'm like, well, let me just show you. So then I started initially just putting a little food here and there on the things I was eating. And I started getting feedback like, wow, where is that? That looks great. Where is that? Looks great. So then I said, well, you know what? I'm going to expand a little bit more. I'm going to highlight these restaurants. I want people to see where they can go. And I also want the support for the restaurants as well, because the support for the industry raises the industry, which raises everything, raises it for me as well. So I started doing it. And that's why I just find restaurants that are in each one of these cities. And I try to search out new ones. I am guilty of repeat offending a lot of the restaurants because I like them so much. But I try to search out new restaurants and just put together a little video of, hey, this is the name of the restaurant. This is the city I'm in. This is what I ordered. They still have this much other things on the menu. I love this. I did like this much, whatever it might be. And then just really just put that out there for people to know that there's so many different restaurants. There's so many different foods. Nothing's all the same. They're all different. And, even if you look at my vegan diaries, very seldomly do I even do a vegan burger unless it's an amazing burger. That's what most people think. Oh, would you have a veggie burger? No, I actually went for other stuff. There's amazing things. So, uh, yeah, so it's just been my way of putting out there to the world that there's so many different options when it comes to a plant-based diet, and there's a lot of restaurants that will cater to you. And if not, I encourage anyone to go into restaurants, ask what they have that's vegan. If they don't have anything, demand something, because supply and demand. I go back to that again. If we don't demand it, they're not going to supply it. And any of your restaurateurs that are listening as well, put something on your menu. Hit me up. Mr. Joseph Blair on Instagram. Maybe I'll come through your restaurant. I'd love to give it a little review and give it a little video. And if you want to give me a free meal, I'll take that too.
Well, they're great, and they're overseas too. I saw some very good food in Italy.
Yes, yes, I've had some in Italy and also Japan. I did one in Poland last summer, so it's a global thing.
You are an athlete, a professional athlete. You've reached the highest echelons of sport. So you clearly are very disciplined, and you've told us you're disciplined. But there's a lot of people who aren't as disciplined. Us mortals, mere mortals, we struggle with that. And even as a coach, you deal with people who are highly disciplined in so many ways because they too have gotten to professional basketball, which is very competitive. What would you say to someone though who doesn't have that kind of drive in terms of changing their diet and their lifestyle? Because veganism is more than just what you eat; it's what you wear and how you look at the world, what you support, etc.
I remember back in January, it was Veganuary, and I was, as you said before, I was a spokesperson for Veganuary, and people would ask me all the time, like, okay, I'm really interested. I just don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start. And my answer is always like, okay, start simple. It's like anything. Like if it is 2 meals a week, and then next week make it three, and the next week make it four, and then maybe five the next week. Then try to go a whole week. Then do whatever you want the next week. But as you start doing that, you start opening your mind and open your palate to plant-based foods. And the biggest thing I would say also is what I said before, you show yourself grace. Like, it's kind of like what I talked about earlier with whether it's a person who drinks too much or smokes cigarettes. You don't say, okay, well, I drank again, so I might as well just keep drinking. No, all right, you fell off the wagon a second. Get back up, do it again. It's fine. Like you have to show yourself some grace. It's just totally normal with any lifestyle change in any area of your life. So you have to think about the same way when you think about becoming vegan or starting to follow a plant-based diet. You're gonna have to show yourself grace and don't freak out if you mess something up. Don't say, okay, well now I ate a piece of chicken, so I might as well go have a steak dinner tonight. So I might as well do this. I might as well do that. Well, that's the same mentality that drives those other issues when it comes to lifestyle addictions. So show yourself grace and start slow. Start in your way. I am disciplined, and I said, I'm gonna stop cold turkey, and it was easy for me because also I had been vegetarian for over a decade earlier, and for me it was just like one more step further, and I understood how to live as a vegetarian, so it was just like one more step that I thought I could do. So I would just say, give yourself some grace and take it at your speed. Take it at your speed and know that just one meal makes a difference. It does make a difference. It makes a difference in your body and makes a difference on the planet.
And it makes a difference to that animal.
100%.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So tell us a little bit about what the future holds for you in terms of your advocacy. What do you want to be doing?
Honestly, it's just I'm open to speak to whoever wants to listen. As I said before, I'm not trying to push anything on anyone, but I definitely would love the opportunity to educate. So hopefully, as I continue to become a little bit more well known, it seems in the plant-based world, I have more of an opportunity. I have more of a platform to just speak on veganism, to speak on my conscious living, the way I believe it to be, and that's just my goal. I just want to try to help people because I believe that as I continue to help people, it actually goes back to what I believe is conscious living. I'm showing that I care about people and I'm being rational to understanding that not everyone has this type of education they need. Not everyone has this knowledge, but also being compassionate. I care about what happens to your body. I care about what happens to this planet. So it is just my exemplification of conscious living at its finest.
Well, you have a lot to offer, vegan coach, and I'm so glad that you came on the show because I know you educated a lot of people and inspired them too, including me. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a blessing. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Continue to do it.